This is Saturday Agenda. With me now, Liberal Senator Zed Seselja. Senator Seselja, first the question I guess that needs to be asked: will you support the spill motion when Parliament resumes?
No, I won't be, Kieran.
Okay, why is that?
Well, because I think we need to get on with the job of governing, and I don't think a spill motion, which I don't believe will be successful on Tuesday, will help us to do a better job governing our nation. I think that we've been well served, very well served, by our leadership team of Tony Abbott and Julie Bishop for a number of years. They are the team that took us from very, very difficult times in opposition over a number of years to a pretty resounding electoral victory only 18 months ago, or less than 18 months ago.
Well, why then are your colleagues disgruntled? Why are we seeing this action to remove the Prime Minister after 16 months?
Well, obviously those colleagues who are moving the spill can speak for themselves. I don't think they represent the majority of my colleagues. I don't think they represent a majority on the backbench. That is not the view that I'm getting from most of the colleagues I've spoken to. So those who feel disgruntled, obviously that's a matter for them to explain why they feel that way.
Have you got, or have you had contact from anyone sounding you out?
In terms of
internal, number counters and so on?
No, I haven't had anyone calling me and asking me to support a spill. I haven't had anyone calling me and asking me to support an alternative leader. I'm very clearly supporting our Prime Minister, very clearly supporting our Deputy Prime Minister, very clearly supporting the team that we have, and a spill, I think, would make us look a little bit like the Labor Party. A successful spill would look a little bit like the Labor Party, and we are not the Labor Party. And that would be my very clear message to my colleagues.
Have you spoken to Malcolm Turnbull in the last few days? Has he called you?
No, I haven't.
So if Tony Abbott remains Prime Minister and the spill is unsuccessful, and the polls don't shift, do you empathise with the view of some of the backbenchers who, many speaking off the record, but some publicly now, that believe the electorate has stopped listening to the Prime Minister?
Well, a couple of things. One, I'm not going to get into hypotheticals of what may or may not happen beyond Tuesday. What I would say is I certainly won't be supporting it on Tuesday. I don't think it should go ahead, and I'm pretty confident that it won't be successful. But in terms of the future, obviously we need to improve. There's no doubt about it, Kieran. No one believes that it's a good thing to be behind in the polls. No one in politics wants to be behind in the polls, but the next election is a long time away, Kieran, and there's a lot of work to happen before we go to the Australian people and ask them for their support once more.
What then do you think that the Prime Minister needs to do explicitly? What does he need to do better that he's struggled with? Because we've heard all sorts of complaints, from a lack of judgment with the Knights and Dames issue, to his staffing arrangements, to the performance of his key ministers like Treasurer. What do you think he should do in the short term to reboot not just the perception of him in the electorate, but within your party, which is clearly not great right now?
Well, look, I think it's firstly, Kieran, not just about the Prime Minister, it's about the entire government, it's about the entire leadership group, the entire cabinet. All of us have to do a better job. I think that if I look at what the Prime Minister set out in his National Press Club address, I think he needs to be given the opportunity to actually implement that, that focus, that renewed focus on jobs, on families, on lowering the cost of living. When it comes to things like cost of living, of course, we already have some significant achievements, like through getting rid of the carbon tax, saving people hundreds of dollars a year in their electricity, gas and other bills. That renewed focus on lowering people's costs, on growing the economy, on growing jobs and on looking after families, that's what he needs to be given the opportunity to do.
Okay, so you're saying given the opportunity. Andrew Robb seemed to suggest that he should be given more time. Is that what you're saying here as well? At least through the budget, and more time this year to articulate, and then if that doesn't prove successful, then reassess later in the year?
Well, that's not what I'm saying, so don't put words in my mouth there, Kieran, in terms of reassessing. What I am saying, though, is that the Prime Minister has set out a very clear way forward. I think that's a good way forward. I think that if we are talking about that, for the next 6 months, I've got no doubt that the Australian people will be receptive to that and we'll see a different dynamic emerging. But if we're talking about ourselves for the next 6 months, I've got no doubt that the Australian people will look unfavourably upon that.
Do you accept that Malcolm Turnbull and Julie Bishop, though, have been completely loyal to the Prime Minister, that this has been a groundswell from the backbench, not something like in the Labor years where there were individuals in the Cabinet always wanting to drag down the Prime Minister? That's not the case here, is it?
Well, Kieran, firstly, I wouldn't agree with your characterisation of a groundswell. But secondly, I would absolutely say that Julie Bishop has been an excellent and loyal deputy, and I think Malcolm Turnbull's done a very good job as a Cabinet Minister and as Minister for Communications. So they are.
They've been loyal, 100%?
Well, I have no reason to believe they haven't, and I hope and expect that they'll continue to be loyal.
Yeah, so if you're not going to call it a groundswell, what do you call it then? Because it's not just the two MPs yesterday. There are at least, well, there are several that I know of privately expressing their concerns. How many is the question?
Sure. Well, several MPs expressing their concerns to you. I can only take your word for that. There obviously are some on the backbench who are not happy. I think that's clear. But a groundswell, I think, has a particular connotation which I'm not accepting. So, what I would say is, yes, there are some people who aren't happy. I think it's important that leaders always listen to that, that they take those concerns very seriously, that we take the concerns, first and foremost, of the electorate very seriously. If we continue talking about ourselves, that won't be good for the government, that won't be good for the country. If we focus on what the PM has set out as our forward agenda, then I think we will do much better. I think our nation will do much better.
Do you think Malcolm Turnbull would be able to successfully lead the party if the spill motion does get up? Well,
again, I think we've got an excellent Prime Minister and an excellent leader, and I don't see any reason to change.
And the opinion poll doesn't make you think twice? The survey, I think there are a few more coming out over the next few days. It might not make you think twice, but others in marginal seats, they might.
Well, look, I can't speak for others, Kieran. What I can say is that opinion polls have been against this Prime Minister before. I don't think anyone gave him a chance of taking government when he took over. Very few people gave him a chance at the time. Many people wrote him off. Many people are trying to write him off now. I'm not one of them.
The deputy, you've referred to Julie Bishop several times and saying that that's the team you'd like to go forward. Clearly there are tensions between the Prime Minister and his deputy. Yesterday there was a statement put out saying that Julie Bishop would not support the spill motion because of Cabinet solidarity and her role as deputy, not because of the great attributes or performance of the Prime Minister.
Well, look, I don't see anything unreasonable about what Julie Bishop had to say. I think she has supported the Prime Minister. I think she will continue to support the Prime Minister.
Okay. Senator Seselja, thanks for your time.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for coming in.